What command did Samson's mother get about him before he was born? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Judges on Walking Through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing Judges 13 verses 1 to 12, but before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Judges 13 verse 1, but if you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Judges chapter 13, beginning at verse 1. Again the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. Now there was a certain man from Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Indeed, now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. So the woman came and told her husband, saying, A man of God came to me, and his countenance was like the countenance of the angel of God, very awesome. But I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. And he said to me, Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. Now drink no wine or similar drink, nor eat anything unclean, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, O my Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to us again, and teach us what we shall do for the child who will be born. And God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came to the woman again as she was sitting in the field, but Manoah her husband was not with her. Then the woman ran in haste and told her husband, and said to him, Look, the man who came to me the other day has just now appeared to me. If you ask Bible students to name off the top of their head the 13 judges found in the book of Judges, most could probably name 4 with relative ease. One would be Deborah, for she was the only female judge. Then we have Gideon, famous for winning a battle with just 300 men. Then Jephthah, famous for the foolish vow that he made. And the 4th would be the judge we're going to be introduced to here in this chapter, the man named Samson, a man who will become known for his immense strength. But unlike all of the other judges who we met in this book as adults, we actually begin the story of Samson before his birth. But before getting to the story itself, let's talk about the time period that Samson lived in. Verse 1 says that the Philistines were afflicting Israel because Israel had done evil again in the sight of the Lord. Now it might be tempting to assume that this affliction began after the judgeship of Abdon, which ended around 1070 BC. But if this is true, the story of Samson would take us well into the reign of King Saul, and so this conclusion must be rejected. Although the book of Judges doesn't say specifically, I believe we can place the beginning of chapter 13 during the start of the affliction of the Ammonites before the judgeship of Jephthah. The reason is because Judges 10 verses 6 and 7 says, Then the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served the Baals and the Ashtoreths, the gods of the Syrians, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the people of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines. And they forsook the Lord and did not serve him. So the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of the people of Ammon. The story of Jephthah only concerned the deliverance from the Ammonites. Nothing is said about the Philistines. Thus, I believe it is safe to conclude that the author of Judges is going back here in chapter 13 to deal with Israel's deliverance from the Philistines, a deliverance that began during the days of Samson and would continue on through the period of Samuel. So if this is the case, we have to back up our timeline to about 1118 BC. Coming to verse 2, we're going to find that these events must occur around the beginning of the affliction of the Philistines, for later on, we learn that Samson judged Israel for 20 years, yet didn't defeat the Philistines until the end of his judgeship, when he died. That means that Samson's entire judgeship must be included within the 40 years of oppression by the Philistines, and not follow the usual pattern in Judges where there is sin and then oppression, repentance, deliverance, followed by a time of peace. The setting for this chapter is Zorah, a city of Dan that laid on the border that the tribe of Dan had with the tribe of Judah, making Samson a Danite. Samson's father is named Manoah, but his mother is unnamed. His mother, though, is barren and cannot have children. We've seen throughout our Old Testament studies that God has often used barren women to accomplish some purpose that he has in mind, and that will be no different here. For when the angel of the Lord appears to her, he tells her that she will have a son. This child, though, would be different than most children in that he will be a Nazirite from the womb. We studied about the law of the Nazirite back in the book of Numbers, but in order to refresh our memories, let's reread Numbers 6, verses 1 to 12. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When either a man or a woman consecrates an offering to take a vow of a Nazirite to separate himself to the Lord, he shall separate himself from wine and similar drink. He shall drink neither vinegar made from wine nor vinegar made from similar drink. Neither shall he drink any grape juice, nor eat fresh grapes or raisins. All the days of his separation he shall eat nothing that is produced by the grapevine, from seed to skin. All the days of the vow of his separation no razor shall come upon his head, until the days are fulfilled, for which he separated himself to the Lord. He shall be holy. Then he shall let the locks of his hair of his head grow. All the days that he separates himself to the Lord, he shall not go near a dead body. He shall not make himself unclean even for his father or his mother, for his brother or his sister, when they die, because his separation to God is on his head. All the days of his separation he shall be holy to the Lord. And if anyone dies very suddenly beside him, and he defiles his consecrated head, then he shall shave his head on the day of his cleansing. On the 7th day he shall shave it. Then on the 8th day he shall bring 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, to the priest, to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. And the priest shall offer one as a sin offering, and the other as a burnt offering, and make atonement for him, because he sinned in regard to the corpse, and he shall sanctify his head that same day. He shall consecrate to the Lord the days of his separation, and bring a male lamb in its first year as a trespass offering. But the former days shall be lost, because his separation was defiled. When we studied Numbers, we learned that with this vow came dietary restrictions, hair length restrictions, as well as restrictions concerning being around the dead. But we also saw that this vow was taken on one's own behalf and would usually be temporary. With Samson, not only wouldn't he be the one making the vow, for the Lord was going to require that he keep this vow even though he didn't make it, but this vow would be permanent, beginning even before he was born and lasting for as long as he lived. Now, why would the Lord do this? Well, the text only tells us that Samson was going to deliver Israel from the Philistines, but that in and of itself didn't require one to be a Nazirite, for none of the other judges we read of are Nazirites. The fact of the matter is, we don't know the Lord's reasons entirely, nor do we need to know. The Nazirite vow separated one as a person to be holy to the Lord, dedicated for a time to him and his service, so perhaps that had something to do with it. We just don't know for certain, and so it's really useless to speculate on that further. Because Samson was to be a Nazirite from before birth, even Samson's mother was told to follow the dictates of the Nazirite vow for her entire pregnancy. Now, the words of the angel of the Lord here certainly excited Manoah's wife, and so she came and told Manoah what the man of God had told her. Notice that she described the angel of the Lord as the man of God, and not God himself. The reason for this is because she didn't know the man who he was or what his name was, but she did know that he spoke the words of God. In other words, that he was a righteous man. We're going to find out his identity later on in the chapter, but for now, let's keep in the back of our mind our 2 options. The angel of the Lord is an angelic being sent by God, or God himself. Manoah could have been a man of unbelief, but he wasn't, for he prayed to the Lord that the man of God be sent again to teach them further. And God heard Manoah's prayer, for when his wife was sitting alone in a field near her home, the angel of the Lord appeared to her again. But instead of seeing him alone, she went to get Manoah, so that he could learn what God had to say as well. We'll continue with this, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Judges 13, verses 11 to 25. as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.